Hi guys, welcome to another session on Protector. My name is Karanbir Singh. So let's have a quick recap of what we did in the last video. In the last video, we understood the usage of different locators for Protector, and we had also learned how to create locators in Protector. Let's have a look at what are the topics that we are going to cover in this video. So in this video, we are going to configure our framework according to form, and using the locators we had created in the last video, we are going to understand functions like click and send keys. So guys, let's move on to the Visual Studio Code. And this is where we had left in the last session, where we had created these objects, we had created these elements in the last video, and we had created this class. Right. So guys, if you remember in the previous videos, we have transitioned our framework using POM, and POM is a design pattern, right? So we have transitioned our framework for POM. Let's now configure the entire framework as per it, right? So if you remember, we have this config file where all our configurations are present. Let's move this under a folder. Let me just rename this, and I'll rename it as cucumber_config.ts. I will also move this under a folder which is named as config, and I'll move this in this. Right. So guys, if you remember, we had also created tsconfig.json. Okay, but then before we update, let's see what will happen if we do not update. I'll just open the terminal and I'll just write tsc, which means compile my TypeScript, and hit enter. Okay, so the compilation has been done. As you can see that it returned me back. And if you see guys now, very carefully, you can see that .js file is just been created in the same folder where we have ts file, right? If you see, we have the JS files being created just where the TS file is present. So guys, whenever we use TypeScript for Cucumber Protective Framework, what happens is the TypeScript code is transitioned, is converted into JS code, and the JS code is executed, right? So let's do one thing. Let's just delete all these files. We are going to delete all these files. And I'll open tsconfig. Right, we created this tsconfig in the videos. If you've not seen, I'll share the link in the description. You can go through that video. In this, we have two parameters, which is output dir and root dir, right? So I'll just uncomment these, and under out dir, I'll just write temp, and I'll write JS files. So what I mean by temp JS files is I'm saying that whenever you're compiling my code, compile my code under this temp JS file. And by root directory, I mean compile each and every file which is present in this directory. So .hash means the current directory, right? So I'm saying compile everything, compile it in a folder named as temp.js files. But you can see that there is no such folder, right? So what Protector will do is it will create this folder and then compile everything. So let's run tsc once again, and let's see what happens. So I've run tsc, and now if you see, we have a new folder which is temp.js, similar to config. I have config here, I have source here, right? So I can see everything is being converted to JS and is stored under single folder. Right, so this is the benefit of configuring your root directory and your output directory in tsconfig.json file. So guys, let's move on to the config file, right? And if you remember guys, we are going to use Amazon, which is a non-Angular application. So in order to use a non-Angular application, there is one configuration which we need to do, which is browser dot wait for Angular enabled. Now if you read this, if set to false, Protector will not wait for Angular HTTP and timeout task to complete before interacting with the browser. So guys, whenever we are working on any Angular application, we need to set this as true, else If it is not an Angular application, we need to set it as false. So what is the purpose of this? So guys, when we do this, whenever we are telling our browser to wait for Angular enabled, that means, see, Angular is an application where the structure gets loaded only when it is requested. That means if I am navigating from login page to home page will only be created, will only be present in the DOM when I've requested for home page. And that is not the case for non-Angular application. In non-Angular application, you can still have the DOM being created for the pages on which you are yet to visit. Right? It might sound a bit complex, but then we'll gradually understand as we proceed with these videos. Right? But for now, what we need to do is we need to set browser.wait for Angular enabled as false. So now I'll just open Chrome and we'll open Amazon in here. So guys, we added all the attributes after this, but we have forgotten to add the attribute for this button in order to navigate to the login page. So let me just quickly add this as well over there. So what I'll do is I'll just select this. You can see it says ID navlink account list. We'll copy this and we'll directly create it there. So I'll just slow it down and I'll just write here static login. I'll say button is equals to element by dot id. I'll use I'll add the double quotes and I'll paste it here. So guys, this is what we did in the last session as well, right? Now let's understand how we are going to use these elements, right? If you remember in the POM, we created a helper class. So helper class is going to be the class where we are going to write a complete code for protector, right? Let's see how we are going to do it. So what I'll do is I'll just first write export and I'll write class, the keyword, and I'll write login page, right? So this is my class, which is login page. Sorry. So I've created this class and before this class, okay, and in this class, what I'll do is I'll create first an async. I'll write async. Then I will say login function, right? So this is what I'm creating a function now, guys. We'll understand what async means, but what we'll do is I'll write here await and I'll just write login page objects. So if you see that I am getting an option of login page objects, right? If I go back to my PO file, this was the class name that I had given. Why did we use static? So that I need not create the reference of this class in order to access these objects. I can directly access these objects because with the help of this static keyword. How? What I can do is I can just write login page objects and I can do login button, right? First is the login button. We will click on this. Now let's understand. This is the button and I have to click on this in order to reach to this place. So this is the click function that I have here, right? If you read it, it says a promise will be resolved when click command has been completed. So guys, we'll also cover this specially in another video as a topic, but then just to give you an overview, in TypeScript, in Protector, everything is related to promises, right? We'll understand what promise is, but it is just like you are promising that, okay, this element will be present to get clicked, right? And await acts as a keyword which says that this is a resolved promise. Await acts like an surety. I assure you this object will be present there. You just go and click on it, right? Don't worry guys, if you're unable to understand this, we'll cover this especially in a topic where we'll talk about asynchronization and synchronization. For now, let's understand how we can click. right? So this is how we can click. Now if we see the flow, next is the email, right, where we can enter something. So we'll do it. We'll write the same way. I'll write await. I'll say login page objects dot uh, do we have username, right? Username. Okay, so the spellings are not correct, but no worries. I'll say send keys. Now send keys is a function which intakes some input, right? It intakes some input. If you see the example, it says text was, or maybe something just as an input. So you can read these are good for understanding what all things you can do from send keys. So let's, for now, I'll just write my email address, right? So what I'll do is I'll add the double quotes here and I'll write my email address, which is karanveersingh93@outlook.com. Right, so I've used my email address here, right? And now let's go to definition page. What I will do is, okay, so in the definition page, I have browser.get, but we can remove this. Why? Because in the configuration file, we have already added it in onPrepare. So going back to the step file, and what I will do is, I will just create here an object login page helper equals to new login page. So what have I done here? I've created a reference of login page class. I am pressing the control and then I click on it and I've navigated to the class which we just created. Right, this is a function which is present in this class. So what have I done in the step file is I've created a reference of this class. This reference will help me to access this function. How? Let's see. So what I'll do is I'll write it randomly anywhere. Because I just need to execute it, right? So I'll do login page helper, the reference which I had created. As soon as I press the dot, you can see we get the function login function. I will call this function. I will again press control and I will click on this and I'm navigated to this same function. So what have I done? I've taken the reference of this class in login page helper object. Through this object, I'm accessing this function, right? So guys, let's go back to the config and let's make some changes here as well because we have updated it, right? So let us just verify if the paths are good enough or not. So this is good enough. This also looks good enough for us to execute. So guys, in the login page, right, in the suits login page, we need to make sure the path is the exact path that lands us to this feature file. Similarly, the step definition path is the exact path which lands us to the step definition files. Right? So guys, now let's try and execute it. So what I'll do is I'll write npm run cucumber test and login page. Let's try and execute and see if we are able to execute this. Okay, so the Chrome driver has been initiated. Okay, so there are few exceptions. Okay, there are many of them. It says cannot find. Okay, and we have some undefined steps. So guys, don't worry, we'll also learn how to read these exceptions, but currently we can see it says no element found using locator nav ID, right? It was unable to find. So let's see what is the problem. If I go to the step file, first of all, this is an asynchronous function, right? So whenever we call an async function, we need to again write the keyword await. Right, we will write the keyword await. We'll go back. We've said login element py.id. This looks okay. And let's do one more thing. Let's just comment this scenario out. Right, so this was the scenario we did in Cucumber series. So I've commented this scenario out for now. And now let's try and execute it once again. So guys, you can use the up arrow key and you'll get the previous executed command. So I have just pressed the up arrow key and I've hit enter. So guys, again, the Chrome browser has been initiated. You can see that we navigated to the Amazon. Okay, so it says there is an undefined step, float. Okay, let's do one more thing. Let's just change it to Smith, and it says nav ID link account list. Let's just verify the element once again. It says the element does not exist. Let's just verify it. We can copy this again. Let's go back here. Let's go to the PO file. Okay, looks perfect. Let's give it another try. Login page object. Okay. So guys, let's give one more try. Let's check it once more. So again, using the up arrow key, I hit the same command and we have pressed enter. So the Chrome has opened and we are back to Amazon. It is again saying one undefined. Okay, so let me just do one more thing here. Let me just remove this from here and we'll just write his because we have written there his and her. Okay, this looks perfect. Let's just verify this as well. We can write await here and I'll explain you. Let's execute it once now. But so we have executed it again and we have opened Chrome. So the Amazon application has been opened. Okay. And there's okay. So guys, I'm so sorry because of this. There is some problem with this. Let me just remove this apostrophe s as well. And let me just clear this once again, right? And we'll execute it once again. So guys, I've not done much things. I've just added a wait here, which is again a promise resolver. So I'm saying to wait. I'm saying that I assure you this is not an Angular application. That is why I've just mentioned a wait. If we talk about the feature file, we have just updated. We have removed the code because it treats as a code as an input. So we have just removed apostrophe s. We have just enters. We have made it to enters. Now let's try and execute it once again. Now let's see. Let me just open it again. That is why, because we had this apostrophe s in the feature file, that is why it just kept saying that this is an undefined step. So we have just removed that single quote and now let's see. It has clicked on the sign in, but it could not. Function timeout ensure promise resolver within 500 milliseconds. Okay, so we need to handle the timeouts as well. Okay. Function timed out ensure promise resolves within 500 milliseconds. Okay, so guys, we can do one more thing here. What we can do here is, so guys, we need to resolve the timeouts in this, right? So let me just quickly do one thing. Under the source folder, what I'll do is I'll create one more folder and we'll name it as utils, right? Under utils, let's just create one file and name it as timeout.ts. right? And under this timeout.ts, let's just write set timeout. And we'll enter a value here, which is, okay, this is a function. So we'll write here 60, let's say, into, okay, 30 into 60 into this. Okay, so I think that is the other timeout. No. Okay, set default timeout is what we need to do, and it will be imported from Cucumber. Yes. So guys, what this helps us is Cucumber requires a default timeout. Else what it does is it just waits for 500 milliseconds for the page to get loaded. If it is not loaded, then it will keep giving us this exception. So set default timeout, what we do through this is we have increased the default timeout. That is, we are saying do not break in 500 milliseconds, but let's wait for 16 to 1000 milliseconds, right? So we have created this file. Now let's add this file in this config cucumber ops. So what we'll do is under here, okay, so we have this. What we'll do is we'll just remove this, right? So we say under source there is a file named as utils, and just to require that, just use those. So now let's close this. We'll open again a new terminal, and now let's try and execute this. Let's see how it goes. So the Chrome has just opened. Okay, so it has clicked, and now you can see that it has entered, and we got a success. So we have entered the data. You saw that the data got entered, though it took some time. So what we can do is, in order, if you want to see it more, what we can do is we can await browser.sleep, and we can add a sleep of, let's say, 30 seconds, right? Let's run it once again. So again, the Chrome has just opened. And we are to the home screen. The sign in button just got clicked. See, we have entered the data. We are waiting for 3 seconds and it will shut down. So guys, this is how we use the click and the send keys function. I would really want you guys to prepare further. That is, the next part is to click on continue and then enter the password as well and try and log in. We'll cover more things in the upcoming session, guys, because if you see there are a few validations as well. What if I enter something wrong, right? We get this, there was a problem. How do we get this problem? How do we get this? Through our scripts. So this is what we are going to cover in the next video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much, guys.